Hey there, guys. This is Cole. Welcome back to another video. Happy New Year to everyone. Today I'm going to give you my top 15, not a top 10. I'm going to give you my top 15 favorite movies of 2025. Now, recently I did a video on the top 10 worst movies of 2025. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on those train wrecks, go check out that video. But now let's follow it up with something more positive. These are my top 15 favorite movies of 2025, and let's just get into it. Coming in at number 15 for me, and I was close to a month late on seeing this, but whatever, I was able to see it to do the list, and coming in at number 15 for me is going to be Zootopia 2. Now, I did enjoy the first Zootopia movie from 2015. No, not 2015. I liked the first movie from 2016, but when Disney announced they were doing a sequel to it, I was curious, but I was also cautious going into it because let's be honest, Disney has not had the best track record when it comes to sequels to their animated stuff in recent years. So I was a little worried going into it, thinking that this was going to be another one of those. But I got a chance to check it out because my girlfriend Natalie wanted to go see it. Saw it in the theaters, and yeah, this was actually rather good. Now, is it as good as the first movie? Not quite. I mean, I did have some issues with it, but overall, they're just rather minor issues because I thought overall, while this was not as good as the first movie, I thought that this was rather good. And I mean, if a third one happens next, which let's be honest, we know it's going to, because granted, they have not announced a third movie yet, but with how much money this has made, a third movie is pretty much guaranteed. But yeah, if we get a third one, yeah, I'd be on board with it. So yeah. Coming in at number 14 is going to be Companion, which this movie stars Sophie Turner and Jack Quaid. Now, this is a movie that I pretty much went in blind, not really knowing a whole lot, not really knowing what to expect, but my dad wanted to go see it, and I avoided the trailer because I heard the trailer spoiled a huge twist of the movie, so I avoided the trailer. I went into this pretty blind, and yeah, I thought that this was a rather good movie. Now, I'm not going to say anything about the movie and what it's about because it's kind of one of those movies that's hard to explain it without giving away spoilers, but I thought that this was rather good, and yeah, I would not mind giving this another watch and reviewing it at some point. So yeah. Coming in at number 13 is going to be the 2025 horror movie Bring Her Back, which I thought that this was a pretty good movie. Now, this movie was directed by the Filio brothers. I think that's how you say their name. The people responsible for the YouTube channel Raka Raka, which I do rather like that YouTube channel. And Raka Raka, I think, is a great YouTube channel with videos that have dark humor in them. So when I heard that those YouTube... Now, prior to this, they directed a movie called Talk to Me, which I have not yet seen, but however, I thought this movie was rather good, and I'm curious to see what else they do next. So yeah. Coming in at number 12 for me is going to be the new movie Superman 2025, directed by James Gunn, which is the official start to the DC Universe reboot. I thought this movie was fun. In fact, I actually got to see this movie in theaters on July 19th at an IMAX just one day after my birthday, so that was rather cool. But Superman, I thought was a fun movie. David Cornsweet, I thought was a rather good Superman. I thought that the action scenes and the humor by James Gunn were really good. And yeah, I am really looking forward to the sequel of this movie, which is supposed to come out in 2027, I believe, and they're calling the sequel Superman Man of Tomorrow or something like that. But yeah, I had fun with this movie, so yeah, bring it on, James Gunn. Let's see you make another Superman movie. Now, coming in at number 11, this is the only movie that I own on DVD that came out this year. Just give me a second. Sorry about that, but coming in at number 11 for me is going to be the 2025 comedy movie, The Naked Gun, starring Liam Neeson. Now, Now, as a point of reference, when it comes to the other Naked Gun movies, I do own the trilogy pack here, but to be honest, the only Naked Gun movie, at least of the first three movies that I've seen, is of course the first movie, The Naked Gun from the Files of the Police Squad. And when it comes to The Naked Gun from the Files of the Police Squad, I absolutely love that movie. I personally think that The Naked Gun from the Files of the Police Squad is a very funny spoof comedy movie. So when I heard they were doing a new Naked Gun movie with Liam Neeson, I was kind of intrigued, but I was also cautious because legacy sequels and remakes to classic comedy movies tend to be very hit or miss, but I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. Now, again, it's not as good as the original movie, and I cannot comment on Naked Gun 2 or 3 as I haven't seen them yet. And again, this is not as good as the original movie, the first one, but I thought that this was a rather good comedy, you know. I personally thought that Liam Neeson gave a good performance as Franklin Devlin Jr., the son of Leslie Nielsen's character from the first movie. I thought that the humor was rather funny. I thought that him and Pamela Anderson had rather good chemistry together, and yeah, rather good comedy movie. And and considering the fact that I really like the first Naked Gun movie from the 1980s as well as this new one, I am definitely going to check out Naked Gun 2 and 3 when I can, and then I'll do like a ranking video with the Naked Gun movies, but rather enjoyed this one. So yeah. Coming in at number 10 is going to be the comedy movie Good Fortune with Keanu Reeves. I was interested in this movie because I'm a big fan of Keanu Reeves as an actor. You know, he's been in so many movies I like. You know, the John Wick movies, of course, The Matrix, of course, the first Speed movie's a classic, and I do really like the first two Bill and Ted movies as well as Point Break. So, and of course, and another thing I forgot to mention, I also liked Keanu Reeves. I liked him as Shadow in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, so when I heard Keanu Reeves was doing a new comedy, but like a raunchy comedy, I was interested because Keanu Reeves doesn't do too many comedies. And while this is not quite as good as the first two Bill and Ted movies, I thought that this was a pretty good comedy overall, where Keanu Reeves basically plays an angel, you know, watching over people, making sure they don't die. And I think that that's a rather interesting concept for a comedy movie. And yeah, I had a good time with this. I would not mind, you know, picking this up on DVD at some point and doing a review of it because I had fun with it. And I saw this movie in the theaters with my girlfriend and my dad, and we all had fun with it. So yeah. Coming in at number 9 for me is going to be F1, starring Brad Pitt, or Formula One, which, of course, as we all know, was like a type of NASCAR, which I was interested in this movie, not only because Brad Pitt was starring in it, but I was curious about this movie because of the director they had attached. This movie was directed by Joseph Kosinski, who prior to this had directed the Tom Cruise movie Oblivion, which I rather like that movie. He also directed Top Gun Maverick, which I thought was a great legacy sequel to the original movie. And I thought that this was a really good movie. I think that the race car scenes are rather well done. I think that Brad Pitt gives a really good performance. And honestly, I think that this is better than all the Fast and Furious movies, which, now, I do like some of the Fast and Furious movies. I do like the first two. I like part 5, 6, and 7, but the rest of those movies I don't care for. But even 5, which I would say is the best one, this is better than that. I really liked this movie, so yeah. Coming in at number 8 for me is going to be the 2025 horror movie Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan. Now, I gotta be honest, when they first announced this movie, I was very skeptical on it because for me, Michael B. Jordan, in my opinion, is a rather hit or miss actor. So when they announced it, I was a little skeptical. And also, this movie was directed by Ryan Coogler, who, while I did like the first Black Panther movie for what it was, but however, I thought Michael B. Jordan was terrible. I thought Michael B. Jordan was terrible as the villain in that movie. So when they announced he was going to do this, I was very cautious, but on the other hand, however, despite my skepticism, I ended up walking out of this movie absolutely loving it. Like, I was legitimately shocked at how good this movie was. I think that Michael B. Jordan gives a good performance in the movie. I do rather like I like and I do rather like the time setting. One thing I will give Ryan Coogler credit as a director for, I do think he did do a good job capturing the 1930s aesthetic with this movie. I think he does a good job capturing that aesthetic. And I do like the stuff involving the vampires. So yeah, rather good movie. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I would like to pick it up on DVD at some point. So yeah. Coming in at number 7 is gonna be the 2025 horror movie Good Boy, which this is a independent film, which going into it, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I didn't watch a trailer. The only thing that I knew about this movie was it was a horror movie told through, it was a horror movie basically told through a dog's point of view, which I thought, okay, that's a rather interesting concept, and I liked this movie. I thought that the tension was rather good. I thought that they handled the low budget really well, and just yeah, rather interesting movie, I will say that. Coming in at number 6 is going to be a movie based on a true story called The Last Breath, which is called Last Breath, starring Woody Harrelson, Lee Chun Isaac, and other actors, which this is based on a true story about these divers who basically went to fix something underwater, and they're, as the title suggests, on their last breath, and they don't have a whole lot of oxygen left, so they have to get back up to the surface. A very intense thriller movie. And I really liked this one. I wouldn't mind giving it another watch at some point. Coming in at number 5 for me is going to be the Stephen King movie adaptation, The Lawn Walk. And coming in at number 5 for me is the Stephen King movie adaptation, The Lawn Walk. And this, of all the movies on the list, this is the most emotional, like, tough to watch type of movie. This is not, when it comes to this, unlike some of the other movies I mentioned on the list, this is, if you want a movie to make you feel good, this is this is not exactly the type of, it's like The Green Mile. It's not exactly the type of movie you want to throw on if you want to feel good, because this is a really depressing movie, but it is rather well done, where it's basically a post-apocalyptic movie about these teenagers where hundreds of teenagers participate in this thing called the Lawn Walk, where throughout the course of 5 days, they have to walk 320 miles without stopping. Basically, if they stop for even a few seconds, 10 seconds later, people in the military, they will shoot the person and kill them if they stop moving. So, it's a very intense, gut-wrenching type of movie. So, again, like The Green Mile, it is depressing. So, this is not the movie that I'm going to throw on all the time. But I could see myself watching this, once every 5 years. But it was rather well done. And I thought that Mark Hamill gave a rather good performance as the drill sergeant. The guy in charge of this whole operation. So, yeah. Coming in at number 5 for me, and this is a movie that I'm upset this movie went to Netflix and not the theaters, because I would have loved to have seen this movie in theaters. And coming in at number 4 for me is going to be Frankenstein, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Now, Guillermo del Toro, I do rather like as a director. Guillermo del Toro was a rather good director. For those of you guys who are not familiar with him, he directed Blade 2 with Wesley Snipes, which I think is the best Blade movie. He also directed the first 2 Hellboy movies starring Ron Perlman from the 2000s. He also directed Pan's Labyrinth, which is this great fantasy horror movie. He also directed the first Pacific Rim movie, which I did like the first Pacific Rim, but I was not a fan of the sequel, although Del Toro was not involved with the sequel. But this movie I thought was fantastic. I mean, honestly, I personally think that this is the best movie Del Toro has directed since Blade 2 and Hellboy 2. I was legitimately shocked at how good this movie was. And coming from someone who is a massive fan of the novel Frankenstein, published by Mary Shelley in the year 1818, I thought that this was a great adaptation of that book. And honestly, the best adaptation of that book we've had since the original Boris Karloff movie from the 1930s. I was legitimately shocked at how good this movie was. I think, I think that Del Toro did a fantastic job directing this movie. I think that Oscar Isaac is rather good as Victor Frankenstein. For those who don't know who Victor Frankenstein is, he's the scientist that built the monster Frankenstein, which when they first announced Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, I was a little skeptical on that because I'm like, I don't really know if I could picture him as a mad scientist, but honestly, I thought that he did a really good job. I was surprised at how good he was. And Jacob Edori, I think that's the name of the actor. Correct me if I'm wrong down below, but Jacob Edori, I think that's his name. Jacob Edori, I think he was phenomenal as Frankenstein. Like, I thought that the actor who played Frankenstein was phenomenal in this movie. Like, I think that the makeup is really good. I think that a lot of the practical effects are really good. And, rather well done movie. I hope this movie does get a DVD release. I mean, let's be honest, it probably won't because Netflix don't put most of their original movies out on DVDs, so it probably won't get one, but I hope it does. So yeah. Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be The Accountant 2 starring Ben Affleck and Jon Bernthal. Now, when it comes to the first accountant movie with Ben Affleck, I did like the movie for what it was. I thought it was a good action thriller movie. However, this sequel on the other hand, it takes what was good about the first movie, it takes what was good about the first movie, but it does it much better. I think that the story is rather interesting in this movie. I think that the action scenes for an action thriller movie are rather good, and Jon Bernthal and Ben Affleck had really good chemistry in this movie. So, yeah. Coming in at number 2 for me is going to be Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk. Now, I did rather like the first Nobody movie from 2021. I thought it was a pleasant surprise, and I know some people thought that this was a little bit of a disappointment and not as good as the first movie, but I disagree. Even though I like the first movie, I personally think that this sequel is better, because I think that this sequel does what every great sequel should do. It takes what you like about the first movie, but expands upon it. I thought that the action scenes were really good. I thought that Bob Odenkirk was really good in the lead role, and I gotta say, for a guy in his 70s, he's in really good shape. And for a guy in his 70s who did an action movie, he's in rather good shape. And I really liked this movie. So, yeah, Nobody 2 comes in at number 2. And number 1 for me is a movie I had fun with. And number 1 for me is going to be the movie Novocaine, starring Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son. Now, I think this is an interesting action movie where basically the premise to this movie is where you basically have this guy that literally feels no pain, and he has to use that power to fight bad guys. I think that that's a rather interesting concept for a movie. I think that the humor is good. I think that the action scenes are rather good, and yeah, I had a fun time with it, and it's my favorite movie of 2025. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's my top 15 favorite movies of 2025. Now, I want to know from you guys down below in the comment section, what are your top 15 favorite movies of 2025? Or at least maybe your top 3 or your top 5 or whatever. But this was a fun list to put together. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And next up, I will be doing a video on my most anticipated movies of 2026 and then my least anticipated movies of 2026. So, yay, that'll be fun. So, until then, guys, we'll catch you guys later. And, Happy New Year, everyone. Be safe out there. And, we will talk to you guys later real soon. Bye-bye now.